Hello, crafty friends. I'm really excited to talk to you today about this make. It was for the Tim Holtz 2022 Ideology release, and I saw the Curio Clock, and immediately, for some reason, and I have no idea why, I thought it should be a Hobbit House. And so I made the Curio Clock into a Hobbit House. Now, I'm going to confess right now that I have not actually read The Hobbit in its entirety. I did try in 8th grade when it was an assignment, but I couldn't get through it. I'm also going to confess that although my husband has seen all of the Lord of the Rings movies at least 2 or 3 dozen times, that I have not seen a single one in its entirety. I actually only saw one battle from one of them, and I'm not even sure which one. So I'm going to confess that. So I leaned heavily on my husband and my mom, who used to watch all of the movies with my dad and my sister. So I leaned heavily on both of them for their advice and approval before I finished this. So let's go ahead and start talking about it. So as far as the ideology pieces go, the Curio Clock was the base, and some of the pieces or things that I used quite a few of the Curator snippets, the window frames baseboards, the ephemera pack memoir, the newest memoir ephemera pack, the fabric design tape, and some of the baseboards. And then, why do I always call the backdrops baseboards? I have no idea. Some of the backdrops paper, but none of that is really on this side except for the ferns. So the ferns are from the backdrop paper that looks like this with all the ferns on it. And really, I just went through with my scissors and I cut them out. And let's see if I have those scissors here. I think I put them away already. I use the fabric scissors when I am cutting these out. Actually, I think they're in this right here. Yeah. So I use the little fabric scissors because they are very sharp and they cut very well. So from Tim Holtz and Tonic, the fabric scissors are wonderful for doing your fussy cutting. Okay, so that's where the ferns came from, and I put those on the back and both sides of the clock. So this is the back of the clock. And I will put in some still shots. Let me move these out of the way. I'll put in some still shots right now of how I started the clock. So the first thing that I did was to actually add some texture. And so you can see all around here that I added texture. And that just means that I started with grit paste. Put grit paste on my finger. It can be translucent or it can be the white grit paste. It really doesn't matter, but you just want to pounce it all over the clock. Okay. And it has that matte, kind of matte black coloring to it. And so it really takes the grit paste well. So I just pounced it all over, and then you don't really have to do it to the back of the clock, but I did because I didn't really have in my mind how I was going to go about this. So I did go ahead and put some around the outside edge, which you'll see in the pictures. Okay, then I let that dry, and the next thing that I did was that I wanted to make the door, and I know on Hobbit houses the doors are round, and when I was looking at pictures of them, there were quite a few that had bricks around them, and it looked like the doors opened inside, and so a lot of them kind of had a like a face on the outside, and then the door would open on the inside. So I thought, well, how can I do that? Well, if you'll remember when Tim was explaining about the clock, it has a silver inside of the face that pops out when you are working on it, and I had popped that out so that I could put all of the grit paste on. And when I popped it out, I kind of thought, you know, actually, I don't need to put that back in here. I could use that as my door frame. And so this is the inside of the front of the clock, and it is a silver color. So I painted it with just like dark brown, any of the dark brown distress paints that you might have. I painted that. Let me kind of zoom in a little bit so you can maybe see this a little closer. Maybe that will help. Okay. You don't have to be so far away while I'm talking. All right, so I painted that, set it aside so that it wasn't just bright silver. I wanted it to kind of look like, you know, wood or something. So while that was drying, then I colored just your regular distress, the wood grain. And let's see, I have some right here. So your wood grain cardstock, and very simple to color, just distress spray stain. So I colored that, and then cut it up into 1/2-inch strips, inked the sides, and I tried to distress them a little bit, and so, because I didn't want them perfectly together, but together enough that it would kind of give you the idea that these were boards. And one of the doors that I saw the most was green, so that's why I went with green. The center, this is just glued on. This isn't, I didn't drill a hole or anything. So this is a hitch fastener that I just glued on to be the knob. And so once you put the, you want to put the wood strips on something, because I was trying to figure out, you know, am I going to put it on the whole back, or how am I going to do that? But I didn't want the green to bleed through. So take your frame once it is painted, lay it on a piece of scrap paper, draw around it, cut that circle out, and then you can lay the board pieces across that circle, adhere them down onto the circle, and then you can adhere the frame to that before you put it onto the back panel of your clock, of your Curio clock. And that seemed to work out the best for me. Then I took that whole piece with the boards and everything, and I adhered it to the center of the back panel and let that really set up. When that was done, I took seasonal grave texture paste, spread it around, and I did this just in little bits, and then I put down the bricks. Now the bricks are paper. I just ran some of the Tim Holtz craft stock paper through. So this is not colored. This comes already colored. It's the Tim Holtz craft stock. It comes in several colors. There's the darker one, the medium one, and then the lighter one. And you can pick either of them. This one happens to be the darkest. And so run it through the Tim Holtz texture fade. The brickwork texture fade. And then once that goes through, I went ahead and just took my scissors again, cut each of the bricks out, the whole bricks out, and then I sanded them with an emery board on the edges. I know this is going a little crazy, but I wanted them to look like old bricks, so I didn't want them to have sharp edges, and I felt like it was worth it. So I went ahead and sanded each piece, and then once I had all my little bricks with the little texture on them from the texture fade, then I went ahead and put the grit paste, grave texture paste down. It's already colored gray. You don't have to do anything to it. And then stick your bricks in with a little bit of collage medium on the back, and just stick them down all the way around and push them down into the texture paste all the way around. Once you get all the way around, let it dry completely. When it's dry completely, then you can take collage medium, put it on the bricks, you can put it on the frame, you can put it on the door, and go ahead and rub that in. And then you can take your distress crayons, and that's where you add your little bits of years of dirt to those bricks to make them look old. And you can add it to the door frame, and you can add it to the door. So that's where you get a lot of your aging, distressing, texturing to go on. All right. Okay, so once that was done, I did not put it back on the Curio Clock, because you have a lot of work to do on the Curio Clock now. So just go ahead and set the door aside, because as you know, it does come off, and you can almost see it kind of pulling out a little bit. I have so much stuff glued on it that I can't take it apart right now. Okay. Now, at this point, your texture paste or grit paste that is on the rest of the clock should be dry, and you want to paint it again. I wanted this to look like dirt because you know the Hobbit houses are in the Shire and they are under all of that mossy looking grass. So I went ahead and painted this brown, and once it was dry, I went ahead and just used different rusty hinge, campfire, forest moss, peeled paint, and just added different colors, even walnut stain, to kind of give it just different depths and like different types of things going on in the soil. And I did that all around, not just the front, but also the base. So the sides, the front, and the base, you want to do the whole treatment with that. Once that is dry, you can start to now decorate your Hobbit house. And so you're going to have to do this by turning the door over, and you're going to decorate the inside of the door. So this is the inside of the door on the back wall. Okay, so you're going to decorate that first. And I used some, again, of the baseboards. So I did this for the wallpaper in the back, and then I used some more wood grain to make the paneling, to make it look like the paneling. The window frame is from the baseboard windows. It's the round one, and I use both round ones. So one round one is a little bit bigger than the other, and so to give it some depth, I just stacked them on each other so that it looked a little farther away. Now, I didn't light it up, but this is a moonlight scene from the vellum landscapes that were in the regular line for quite some time. So if you bought those, you probably have them. You could use them from any of the seasonal as well. I just wanted a moonscape there. All right, so the back wall is fairly easy. That's really all you have to do on the back wall. Now, to get it to light up, so mine lights up, and so the light is on the bottom. So I had to drill a hole in the bottom to go through, and then let me see if I can take this apart off camera so that I can show you how I did that. Okay, so I can't get it apart, so I'm going to put in some still shots here. I had to build up the bottom so that I could put something flat on there. And so I used some chipboard, and you can see that I built up the bottom, but I made sure to leave that hole where the lights were going to go through. I went ahead and added some foam tape all the way around because I needed foam tape so that you couldn't see the lights going through on the side. So there's foam tape that I built up. And then I put all of the lights in the top area, and I wanted them kind of covered. So I put another one of those vellum scenes. This is a city one, as you can see, up there to diffuse the light and yet kind of give it kind of an interesting darker look than just regular plain vellum. You could use regular plain vellum as well, but since I had my the vellum scapes out anyway, I went ahead and used that. So all of the lights are in the top area here, and I adhered them in with I think I used double-sided tape to hold them in place, and then the lights kind of go up the side, but you can't see it because the paper's covering it on the one side. All right, so I have foam tape all in here so that it stays round. And then once I had the foam tape and the base, the chipboard was pretty level, I put some of, where is that paper? It's one of the other baseboards. It's this one. It kind of looks like a little bit like marble, or to me, it looks like a burlwood. My dad used to cut burlwood slabs, and it looks like burlwood to me. So I cut some of that, and I used that for the inside because it seemed like Hobbit houses used a lot of wood in the houses. So I put that up to where the lights were to cover up the foam. And then across the bottom, I put some wood grain, the same wood grain that I used on the back, and I used it for the floor so that there was kind of a flat place for me to put things. Now, as far as what do I have on the inside, this is one of the Idea-ology match boxes, and it is cut in half. And then I just added some of the fabric tape to the fronts of the drawers with some of the brads and one of the little adornment keys on top. I made several books for this, and that is just made out of just any kind of white cardstock. I always just cut up, you know, any kind of book paper I have and put that inside the books to give them some depth. And then this I actually went through and found some of these to put on the front, and then for the names of the books, they have little strips in there with different words and things on them that I used for the titles of the books. For the books on the bottom, and also to hold the match books together, it's difficult to see, but just in case someone looked, I wanted to be sure that I used this design tape for the book covers, as you can see, and then for the outside of the little chest of drawers. This is an old vial that I had put texture paste on and just used distress paint and crayons to make it look old, like an old enamelware. This is another one of the curator snippets that I put on the front here. This is one of the brooms from the Halloween release. And I took off the bottom set of stitching, and then I cut it so that it looked kind of like an old-timey broom that maybe a Hobbit would use. I did have, this was already broken, and so I just kind of pulled it the rest of the way out and replaced it as a shorter handle so that it would fit in there and work for a Hobbit as well. And from my understanding, Hobbits not only like books, but also travel and adventure. And so I needed some maps. So that was in the ephemera pack. And you get 2 of these maps in the ephemera pack. So I just ripped it up and rolled it up. And that's all I did to make the maps, and tied a little bit of string around them. So it was just one of these that I made those out of. So that was simple as well. And I think that is pretty much it. So to finish it off, once it would light up, and I was ready to put all of this in. I had all of these made. I went ahead and attached the back, and then I could go ahead and start putting these things in and adhering them down in place so that they didn't move. I did add one of the drippy candles because you know I love a drippy candle. And then I needed a shire for, you know, my Hobbit house. So I just grabbed some moss and I just put a boatload of moss on top so that it looked like a shire, the grass on the shire. So I put some down here and it covers up just a bunch of things. And then just to make it a little bit more fun, I added those fern. There was, and I don't know if I even still have this around. Oh, I do. Look, see, it's still out here. I had this of the small paper dolls release, and I almost colored these guys and added them as hobbits because they don't have shoes on. They just have their feet. And so I almost added them as hobbits, but I felt like it just was off a little bit and it kind of looked funny. So I ended up not using them. I'm not sure how they would have looked if I had put them. They probably might have worked a little bit better on the front here if I had put them on the front. But that's just an idea. If you want, these were the paper dolls I thought looked closest to hobbits since they didn't have any shoes on. And so you could color them and kind of put them. You could even maybe cut them apart and, you know, stick one hobbit inside and a couple on the the front if you wanted. Anyway, that's where I went with the Hobbit House that I was compelled to make the minute I saw the Curio Clock. So if you have any questions about anything, you know, I would, as always, I would love to answer the questions and try and help you out. I didn't take too many pictures when I was building it, and I wish I had done a little bit more video so that you could have gone, you know, come along with me on the trip. But hopefully the stills and the explanation with the stills will help answer most of the questions. And then again, just contact me through my blog and the contact in the right-hand column, and I will be glad to try and answer any questions I have. So thank you so much for stopping by, and I hope that you have a crafty day.